Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Peah, Daf Yud Aleph. We're actually going to be referring back to Daf Yud predominantly. It's a short blot, but one quick thing. So the Mishnah says that when a person gives Peah, the Mishnah says that he doesn't have to just wait till the end of his harvest, but he could even do it from the beginning or the middle. And then there's a machlokes in the Mishnah whether he has to give something at the end. So I want to just talk about that in two different aspects. So the Gemara brings all these different rayas. Liktsar, what does that mean to reap? So it means at any time, whenever you're reaping, you're allowed to give peah, beginning, middle, and end. So there's a famous thing that the Sfarim bring down about mayim rishonim and mayim achronim, when a person eats a meal. And the Ramchal talks about this in Derech Hashem, that when a person eats a meal, he's supposed to remind himself of Hashem, and especially at a time of eating, we're prone to forget. So therefore, when we eat the meal, what we do is, first, before we eat the meal, we wash our hands, and we're mekadesh the meal for Hashem, and then afterwards we're mahapech it back to Hashem with washing our hands again, mayim aviyisim kedoshim, etc. And also, like the Ramchal says, when we bench, we're also mahapech it back to Hashem. I remember my sister and I were at a meal at someone's house, a family friend in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a woman there who was a Holocaust survivor, and she taught us a very beautiful lesson. It was a very delicious meal. The person was a caterer, and a great caterer, and the woman benched with such kavanah. It was amazing and beautiful. And my sister and I both asked her, where did you learn to bench like that? And she said, obviously, I went through the Holocaust and I appreciate life more. But she said that the more delicious the meal is, the more I have to thank Hashem for longer and longer and longer. And it was just such a positive and beautiful message, which is the point of benching. So, according to the Shita that says, which is the second opinion of Yehuda in the Mishnah, the way the Gra and other people explain it, is that you have to give pay at the end, because at the end of the field, you have to bring back the field to Hashem. The other opinions say no, that if you gave it at the beginning and you gave it in the middle, that's also fine. But the idea is that we're turning it back towards Hashem, like we mentioned from the Chinuch, that here we're dealing with planting the field, and we want to make sure that we are recognizing that everything comes from Hashem, and like the Chovos HaLevavos says, that we are a gizbar to watch over this money, and we have our obligations to share. And so what I wanted to say was that that's a large part of what we're trying to talk about here, whether you give it at the beginning, middle, or end. Now, again, some of the Mepharshim also explain that if you were only allowed to give it at the beginning or the middle, then a dishonest farmer someone might come to their field and say, hey, where's the pay? And he would say, oh, I already separated it before. And so, therefore, we made a rule, according to Yehuda's opinion, that he has to give at the end so that he can't kind of squirm out of it. But I want to just go back to the Mishnah on Daf Yud for a moment, and that was out of print. Ein poskim lepeh mishishim. You have to give 1/60th, even though the Mishnah just said that it's Elam Shir. Afal pi she'amru ein lepeh shir. Hakol if godel asadeh. Now listen to these words. And there's a machlokes. I don't want to say Baving Yerushalmi, but there's a machlokes girsos. And if you look at the Mishnayos, you'll see different words here, but pay very close attention because girsa makes a big difference. Hakol if godel hasadeh, which seems to mean everything depends on how big your field is. Ulafi ha'aniyim, and according to the amount of poor people there are, which is a whole discussion in the Gemara later on that we had. Ulafi ha'anava. Now, you and I, whenever we hear the word ana, we think of ourselves, we think of humility, which is, most Mepharshim actually say that's not what it means. But there are some Rishonim that do translate it, and it means according to humility. And that's a lesson in itself, that when you give tzedakah, you should be humble, because that will definitely help. Like the Gemara says, Gogel hu al-chozer ba'olam, it's a sulam. You might be at the top in one moment, but then you could be at the bottom. And someone said, why are you being so generous to me in giving tzedakah? And he said, because I want you to be generous. I want your grandchildren to be generous with my grandchildren when they're collecting from yours. It's Gogel al-chozer ba'olam with people that have money and don't have money. So there's a three-way machlokes about how to read these last words. Does it say lefi rov aniyim or rova anava? Which again, and how do you translate the word anava? Most people say it means how much stalks you have. But then what's the difference between that and godel asadeh? You'll look at the Mepharshim and you'll find a very interesting thing. But the word anava, some people translate it with a bays, which means kernels, etc. But the bottom line is that there is this element of looking at what you actually have and sharing accordingly, according to everybody, and humility, which whether you translate lefi rov ha'anava or anava, whether you have the word rov, the Rav seems to also leave out the word rov. Ayin Sham, Tosas Yantiv talks about this as well in that Mishnah. It's a Parak Aleph Mishnah Beis, the second Mishnah. But it's certainly good to be humble when it comes to giving tzedakah. Have a great day.